And if you favor neither domestic nor foreign intervention, you're an extremist. Yeah. And it really is true. You think of anybody who qualifies as a so-called moderate. That person supported the foreign policy of the last 10 years, which has been a complete fiasco even on its own terms, supported the bailout, supported every horrifying thing. That makes a person a moderate. But if you thought all these things were boondoggles and fiascos, that makes you an extremist. And I always want to say, extremely what? Like, I don't see why, you could say, you want to call somebody, like a murderer or something. Well, I can see why that would be bad. Somebody's a thief. That's bad. But extremely awesome? That's okay. Like, extremely what? They never say. Just that you favor something extremely. But by that definition, all these people they favor extreme forms of intervention. I mean, what were the bailouts if not extremism? I mean, taking money, throwing it at super duper rich people, and saying that the economy is going to collapse if we don't do this. And even Rachel Maddow, right? She's supposed to be a progressive who cares about the common man and all this. She went on Jay Leno and said, if it weren't for the bailouts, we would at least after the bailouts, at least we have an economy. We wouldn't have had an economy. We wouldn't have had an economy. So people wouldn't have been buying and selling. There wouldn't have been property laws. And what does that even mean? But these are the moderates. These are the respectable people. So when I think about, I had that guy Matt Kibbe on my show, the guy who runs Freedom Works, and I was prepared not to like this guy because he works in D.C. and I just have this visceral prejudice against these people, and that's not good, right? You should be on your guard, but individuals are individuals, right? You've got to evaluate everybody one person at a time. So it turned out I actually kind of like this guy. But I asked him, do you have any issue that you just say, this is my deciding issue, that if you come down on the wrong side of this, that is it. There ain't no way I can possibly support you. And he's on the show, he's thinking, I think I had this reputation for being like a bad guy or something. I don't know where I got that. If you listen to my persona on the show, I actually seem pretty nice. But I think he was expecting me to bite at him all the time. So he very gingerly said, well, I think the bailouts. And I said, ding, 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 that's the correct answer. On economics, the bailouts is the key issue. Now, of course, your key person on this is David Stockman, who has overturned every argument you ever heard for those bailouts. That the ATMs would have gone dark, and the money market mutual funds were going to collapse, and nobody would have been able to make payroll, and all this stuff. Like everything we heard, the economy was going to grind to a halt. He's demolished it in that great book, The Great Deformation. But the AIG thing is a great example. Every respectable person said AIG needs to be bailed out. Every respectable person, every moderate, every respectable liberal, every respectable conservative, they were all in favor of this. I mean, there was one Republican, I won't mention his name, but he ran for vice president in this last cycle, who got onto the floor, the House floor, and was basically screeching that the world is going to end if we don't support these bailouts. And Stockman has shown the whole thing is nonsense. In fact, with AIG, it was supposedly that their credit default swaps were going to blow everybody up. But it turns out that when you look closely at it, 90% of AIG is things other than credit default swaps, so that's not a problem. But secondly, who's holding these toxic assets, supposedly? Who's actually holding them? Turns out it's not any mom and pop institutions or local community banks. It's 12 gigantic institutions around the world, capitalized in the many, many, many trillions. And the amount they would have had to take a haircut on was like $60 billion, which is like 3 months worth of executive bonuses. I mean, seriously, that's what it was. That John McCain had to halt his campaign. We got to go and deal with this. And there was no justification for it whatsoever. And yet every voice of respectability, every moderate, sensible voice was telling us we had to support it. By the way, in addition to being a moderate, if the media labels you a maverick, you're also a moderate. For the media, a maverick does not mean somebody who dissents from the political mainstream. Because we have very few people who do that. We know who they are, we love those people. But we have very few people who do that. John McCain is a maverick because sometimes he votes with Ted Kennedy. Like when you look back at his old, on education policy or whatever, or on immigration or something, that made him an unbelievable maverick. Well, what would that make Ron Paul, right? I mean, like, everything he does is a maverick, but of course they don't have a word for him, so they just don't talk about it. All right, fair enough. Well, think about other things that are going on. Decentralization is a great trend that we see taking place a little bit here and there with all these 10th Amendment initiatives going on. I had Michael Bolden on the show a couple weeks ago pointing out that there were 5 nullification bills in 1 week that passed around the country on all different issues, ranging from health care to indefinite detention to the NSA, etc. Because you've got bills now, for example, in Utah, they're going to run it again, where they're saying not only are we going to cut the water off to the NSA facility, they need 1.7 million gallons of water a day to cool their spying machines. Some kind of complicated Rube Goldberg algorithm, apparently, for these things. 1.7 million gallons of water, so they're going to cut the water off. That's the first thing. But what they're also saying is, even if you do gather information with this thing, none of that information will be admissible in any court in Utah. Also, if you are a business that is in any way cooperating with the NSA, you're going to be boycotted. And then if you're a university, state-funded, that is in some way assisting in this, watch your budget for next year. And that is the one way to get through to faculty members, by the way, is through the budget. So this sort of thing is catching on. Somebody just beforehand told me that in Rutland, Massachusetts, which after living here 21 years, I'd never even heard of Rutland, they passed some ordinance where they are going to nullify the indefinite detention provision of the NDAA. I mean, good for Rutland, right? Yeah.